Today we're going to talk about the Water Lily Pond, a painting made in 1899 by the French artist Claude Monet. Many of us will be familiar with Monet's water lilies, which are among the most iconic images of Western modern art. In the last 3 decades of his life, from the 1890s to his death in 1926, Monet painted some 250 views of his beloved water garden in Giverny that he had designed, planted and carefully looked after. This picture, and the series to which it belongs, is one of the earliest major and methodical explorations of this motif. And to me this is part of its magic, because it captures that moment of revelation that Monet would recall in almost mystical terms. "It took me a long time to understand my water lilies," he said. "I grew them without thinking of painting them. And then, all of a sudden, I had the revelation of how beautiful my pond was. I took up my palette." But let's take a minute to look at the painting. What do we see? A blue-green Japanese-style bridge spans over a pond surrounded by flowers, bushes and trees. There are clumps of irises and grasses, and there's a weeping willow on the left. Pink, white and yellow lilies float on the surface of the pool, mingled with the shimmery reflections on the water. One of Monet's lifelong sources of inspiration. Monet was so obsessed with the reflective quality of his pond that every single day a gardener would remove the dust, pollen and dead leaves from its surface. We can't see the sky, but we can tell it's a sunny day because of the bright patches of light that appear here and there. We can almost sense the warmth of the sun rays filtering through the clouds, bathing the lilies and the right side of the bridge with the same golden light. At the close of the 19th century, when he painted the water lily pond, Monet was incredibly wealthy and widely recognized as one of the world's leading painters. By then, he had adopted a new artistic approach. He would explore the same subject repeatedly at different times of the day. In these series paintings, as we now call them, he wanted to record the ever-changing play of light on different surfaces. On high stacks, for example, the facade of Rouen Cathedral, a river, or a line of poplars. And our picture is no exception. In 1899 alone, Monet painted 12 similar views of his lily pond, observed over and over again from an almost identical vantage point. So, we might think that the subject of the series paintings didn't really matter to him, that it was just a pretext to capture specific atmospheric effects. But is this really the case? Even though we can admire the water lily pond simply for its beauty and aesthetic quality, we can't fully understand it without mentioning Monet's gardens in Giverny. In 1883, the artist, who was then in his early 40s, rented a house and garden in Giverny, a small village in Normandy about 50 miles to the west of Paris. He later managed to buy the plot of land and gradually expanded his property over the years, developing a wonderful flower garden. Monet was hugely passionate about gardening. He chose his flowers with the same care and dedication he assembled colors on his canvases. By the end of the 1890s, he had 8 gardeners working just for him. "Everything I earn goes into my garden," he wrote to a friend, adding, "and I have to say that I'm very proud of it." And quite rightly so. In 1893, he acquired a nearby plot of land with a water pond, where soon after he planted some hybrid species of exotic water lilies that had caused a sensation at the 1889 Paris World Fair. It was the start of his water garden. Monet conceived the Floral and the Aquatic gardens as complementary environments. The flower garden, more geometrical with its tree-lined avenues and rose arches, was mainly rooted in the Western tradition, whereas the water garden was more Eastern in flavor. Aside from the water lilies and the arched bridge, inspired by the Japanese prints that Monet loved and avidly collected, there were ginkgo trees, bamboo, irises, and Japanese apples and cherry trees. The garden's association with the land of the rising sun was as strong then as it is today. So strong, in fact, that the water garden was known locally as the Japanese garden. It has been suggested that together the two Giverny gardens translated Monet's vision of the world, at the crossroads of the Cartesian legacy of his native France and the Zen philosophy of the East that he deeply admired. In Giverny, Monet created a sort of total work of art where the art of gardening and that of painting responded to each other. Now, today, we're used to thinking about Monet's art in terms of immediacy or spontaneity, as if the only thing that fascinated him was capturing the optical effects of light in a fleeting moment of time. And this is certainly true for his earlier Impressionist paintings. But isn't there something more in this work? To me, this painting bears the traces of several layers of time. The time it took Monet to plant and grow his water lilies, the time it took him to grasp fully the beauty of his lily pond, the time it took him to observe it day after day and then slowly and methodically paint it. As some scholars have suggested, this work is not really about transience. Rather, it is about permanence. It's not about vision, but about contemplation. Not about looking, but about patiently observing the rhythms of nature and the passage of time. Not about grasping the present moment, but about finding timelessness in a fleeting instant. And this is probably why, from early on, some critics have linked this painting to the practice of meditation. There is a sense of silence, calm, and stillness that emanates from it. And perhaps this is also what Monet had in mind when he painted his water lily pond in 1899. We will never know for sure. What we do know, though, is that when, much later, he began to work on his greatest project, the Grande Décoration, a circular installation of huge water lilies paintings, he conceived this immersive and dreamlike environment as a refuge of peaceful meditation, as he wrote in 1909, a room where those with nerves exhausted by work could relax, following the restful example of those still waters.